feel like Gordon Bombay would have taken his career to even further heights.
Everything's flashy, everything's cocaine, everything's
Fun.
Open wide for some soccer.
I don't care what you think about what your personal thoughts are at home. I care that you hate the Cowboys.
Call this college rule.
Buongiorno, bitches. We're here at the Sports Experience Podcast. It's Chris and Dom. And before we get into today's episode, just wanted to, let you know that we're on all the streaming platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. We're on video on Spotify, and we're recording down here at Engle Studio here in Tucson for all of your audio and recording needs. Make sure you follow us on our socials and watch these videos, and give us a like and subscribe in your spare time there. We could really use the numbers to continue producing this quality content. And Chris, what are we in the midst of today?
We are in the middle of our father and son. So father and son's playing the same sport. And we're getting into the first ones of soccer.
Soccer, yeah. We're back on the pitch. And today we're talking about Cesare Maldini.
Mm-hmm.
Cesare Maldini, a very famous Italian soccer player and soccer coach, more than anything.
Like I was saying, if he was just a player, I don't know if we necessarily would have done this one. He was a great player, but he wasn't like a Hall of Fame style player or whatever. But then his coaching career kind of
was amazing.
Yeah, it really developed a lot of these Italian stars that we saw in the 2000s, including his son. So,
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
All right. Cesare Maldini, born February 5th, 1932 in Trieste, over there in Italy. His dad's name was Albino, which I thought was Albino probably,
yeah.
But I just saw Albino and thinking, all right.
All right.
His mom, Maria, was also basically a homemaker because his dad was a sailor. Mm-hmm. He was a merchant sailor there because Trieste is over there on the Adriatic. Was not Italian, actually. Both his parents were Slovenian.
I thought that was interesting. So they both immigrated to Italy.
Well, no, it was part of Austria-Hungary. So they took it after World War I. So Slovenia, it's like right on that border, and then just below it is the a peninsula where Mario Andretti's from in Croatia. So it's like that little pocket there.
Yeah.
So his last name was actually Maldini. It was after the Italians took over. It was changed to Maldini to make it
more Italian.
More Italian, yeah. America's not the only country that does this.
That's true, but we are notorious for it.
But they're both Slovenian. His dad was away at sea a lot, so his mom raised him. And basically grew up playing soccer like any European youth would.
Well, and this was post-war torn, so when he's in his teens, we see it's the late 40s, early 50s, and we know how bad it was in Europe and Italy and all of this kind of shit. But he kind of emerges in a local side, which is very for the time, you're not going to get a big club coming in and being like, that kid's really good. He just kind of starts playing for his local team, and everybody's like, oh, that kid is really good.
Yeah, so age 20 in 1952, he's with Triestina, and then made his Serie A debut for them in 1953.
Yeah, you don't see Triestina as a club anymore. That's how small they were.
Yeah.
But luckily for him, at this time, they were in Serie A, the first division, and he pretty much gets to put his skills to the rest of the Italian countryside, and there are just bigger clubs were like, oh, we need to go in and get this guy.
Yeah, we see this a lot in our soccer episodes. The kids play for their local teams, and then the bigger clubs kind of swoop in and are like, here's all this money to keep your team afloat for a couple more years. We're going to take them.
It is very much like a feeder thing, but like you said, it keeps their club financially viable, having these players and selling them off. Yeah. I didn't see what his transfer fee was whatsoever.
No, I couldn't
I didn't.
This is probably in the days where you don't know unless you have a Slovene or an Italian-speaking newspaper.
And it also could have been a free one. So this was something that wasn't that wasn't uncommon. Was them being Milan's a serious power, and we're like, nobody, here you go. It was almost like a gift kind of thing.
Priceless like a mother's love, or the good kind of priceless?
Exactly.
So after 2 seasons, though, in 54, he's transfers to AC Milan and is immediately in their starting lineup as a defender, and emerges as one of the best defenders in Serie A in Europe.
And I love his debut because he takes on his old club, which is one of those things that is just so funny, and they end up dominating them. I think they beat 4-0.
Oh, geez.
But this was something that we see later on with his son, is they are such a just staple in the back. So a lot of the times you'll go with, any athlete will go through like spells of injury. These guys really didn't go and miss a lot of games. So like,
dude, it was crazy reading that. Like they were Iron Men essentially.
Yes,
like
and
the Cal Ripkens almost of Serie A.
Because literally every single time you would see Milan play, he was in the back, one of their central defenders, one of like the, you know what I mean? Like literally on this Milan team that went on to win a bunch of the Serie A titles.
Oh, yeah. No, 347 games I found to be quite interesting for them. And obviously he's the captain, and obviously he's just the staple, and the Italians play what I've been reading about, because my soccer knowledge is very limited. They are very defensive-oriented.
Well, this is what I love about the Maldinis. Fucking him, his son, is literally they are like what Italian soccer is, which is build from the back. They're just completely calm. I have to say this. They won the Serie A in his debut season, and everybody said that, like, locking up that defense. And then they lost it the next one. They won in 56, 57, 58, 59. Yep. And then he became captain in 61, and they won in 61, 62. And that's what people were saying was, like, this was, like, the first little pocket of, like, this Milan kind of being, like, a dominant force.
Like the dynasty. The Italians love that junk in the trunk, though.
Man, do they love it. And then we see in 63, he goes on the international stage because they end up winning the first European Cup.
May 22nd, 63, yep.
They end up beating Benfica in Wembley Stadium. And it was one of those games where it's the first Italian club to ever win a European Cup.
First Italian captain to lift a European Cup.
And that's what they were saying was so important for them, because Italy was always known for bringing in foreign players. So they were like the first ones, Spain and Italy, but like literally, so it wasn't like standard that you would have an Italian captain.
No.
That's why for them it was so important, because it was pretty much all Italian. And what he did for that Milan team was kind of like put them into legitimacy.
Yeah, no, this is like the start of when they're awesome for later when his son plays for them.
Yeah, because like we were saying, like this is still, this is the early 60s, so it's not like anybody's established. You know what I mean? They're still like, I was saying, like with his original club, like I think they're in Serie C now.
Are they really?
That's how small of a city they are, though. And
it's just like a port city.
Yes, and it just kind of makes sense, because at the time it was just a completely different league, and you had some of these teams being like, well, we're in the capital, so we're gonna
Rome and Milan, the industrial triangle, and Turin, the big cities, and then later you get the South with Maradona and those orgies. But but
that was the big thing, was they were making themselves known as like, we're better than everybody else. And y'all
better step up your game.
For his credit, he played for Milan, like you said, for almost 350 appearances.
Yeah.
And that was over like 7 years. So it's not like he played for like 12 years. This was literally, he played almost every single game.
You could always count on him, though. He was always so reliable. Like, nobody had a bad thing to say about him as far as being a player for these teams.
And he was a core, like at his core, he was a defender. I think he had 3 goals in his entire career. And you're just like, that makes sense.
That's how you know he's in there to win it.
Well, and the thing that I loved about him, because it's hard to like see footage of these guys in the 50s, 60s. They were saying his style of play was very much like his son, where he would almost like read the game.
Yeah, the IQ on these two is ridiculous.
And anticipate, and that's what you want in a central defender. So, like, that's why I
it's like Brett Hull with that white snake and slap shot.
So I'm not slapping it, I'm wristing it. You're just like, all right.
Get that jean jacket out. No, from 54 to 66, he played for AC Milan, and they're kind of like almost the Yankees of Serie A at this time. And then after that, he moves on and plays with Torino for a couple of seasons and kind of finishes his pro career. Do you want to do his international, because it's kind of interesting?
I do want to go. I want to say this about the Torino thing was he kind of got transferred as a name, because they said at that point he was like injured and done because like you just didn't.
You played 350 damn soccer games,
and you didn't have the medical attention. So when he got injured, they were just like, "Well, drink it off." Like that was kind of the thing. So they were saying he went to Torino, and it was his like last,
Old West barbers in Tombstone. Oh, it looks like your knee's got a bit of that consumption.
That's exactly. I'll tell you what you need for that broken ankle: more red meat. It's just like, all right, I don't.
More vino stat.
So so going back, he ends up playing for the Italian national team. But we've covered this before. This is when the national teams literally had like 10 games leading up to the World Cup.
Yeah,
like, they just did
now.
not play international games that much. So I think he capped Italy 14 times, which is so small for the window that he played for.
And he was such a good captain, too. That's what kind of makes it sad. It's like you almost wish he had the opportunities that we'll discuss in his son's episode, like the amount of games that he played for them. Captain from 62 to 63, and then they make the 62 World Cup in Chile. Of all places. There's a lot of bad blood between the Italians and Chileans leading up to this World Cup. You want to go into it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and there was a lot of hype behind this Italian team. Yeah. That was what people were saying going into this World Cup was like were looked at as they were looked at as like one of the better teams going into it.
This isn't the 30s where we're winning and there's a certain man leading us to weird shit.
And they end up going out in the group stage.
Yeah.
And like they literally like I think they played 2 games.
Yeah, they played 2 games. One of them against Chile, and there was a lot of bad blood between the Italian press, a couple of gentlemen named Antonio Girelli and Corrado Pizzanelli. They referred to Santiago as a backwater dump where the phones don't work, and, well, a lot of other terrible things.
They were being super racist. They were being... Yeah. You know what I mean? And then Chile goes on and beats them. And it is one of there's like few times when this happens in international soccer where you're like, oh, that was well-deserved.
Yeah.
Like,
what was it? A letter takes 5 days to turn up, and the population is as prone to malnutrition, illiteracy, and poverty. Alcoholism and poverty.
Yes.
So not a lot, and then the Chileans were firing back that they're fascists and Lotharios and things like that. But, yeah. Pretty much a lot of bad blood, including the game where they played Chile and lost 2-0, where the fans were throwing shit out of the stands.
And there was talks about it being unorganized in that state where like the players were fearing for safety and that kind of shit because it was getting pretty wild out there. I thought it was interesting. Maldini actually played 2 games. We talked about this before the podcast. He played 2 games and he was still on the top 11 players that made the World Cup.
Yeah.
And everybody was just kind of like, wait, didn't Italy lose 2-0?
Yeah.
And then everybody was like, why did he get that? It was just more like his name.
Yeah. A name for what we'll discuss he does later.
He does. Well, he was the captain of Italy, and Italy was looked at as this huge team, and they end up bombing out. And then that was kind of his international career.
Which is kind of sad in a way because he could have done so much more with these teams. It's like both of these guys are on the international team when it's like it just almost doesn't happen for him.
Because he should have been on 66 and he just wasn't. Because that was, like I was saying, that was like his last where he was still physically able to play because then he goes to Torino, I think, in 67. So it was,
So his coaching career, let's get into it
And
now.
this is what I think is his greatest contribution to Italian football is what he did with coaching.
Yeah, so he was an assistant manager at AC Milan in 1970.
And this happens a lot where famous players, and they make the statement, they're like, I want to be a coach, and then their team is like, well, come on and be one of the assistants. Because they literally have like 4 or 5 assistants. They're like, this is the morning training, like bullshit like that. Like
quality control.
Yes, it is very much like they just give them like different. It's almost like Casino where they like put their application at the bottom of the list. But that's the thing is he ends up. They want to do that because they want to show what it is to be a coach, like on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So they have all these assistants.
Water distribution engineer.
Yes, exactly. And he's assistant for 2 years, and then the guy who's the coach of AC Milan ends up becoming the technical director, which is pretty much the GM, if anybody's wondering what that is.
I was actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's literally what it is.
Okay.
It's just called two different things. It's literally the general manager is the technical director. And because it was such an easy transition, he moves him to coach.
Yeah.
And this is where I think for Milan, it was really good for a while, and then it just kind of dips off. So in 73, because he takes over in 72.
Yeah.
73, they win the Coppa Italia, which is like their tourney that they have in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And then they win the Cup Winners' Cup. So that's where the European two winners play each other.
Nice.
And then they were so close on missing out on the double, which is the Coppa Italia and the league. They got second that year.
Yeah, in Serie A.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And this is what people were saying, because the next year they weren't as good in 74, but a lot of people thought he should have gotten more time because they were so good in 73. And in 74, he just ends up getting sacked after a really bitter loss, but they were still like a viable team.
Yeah, he coached a couple of other teams, including Serie C Parma, who he promoted them.
Well,
actually.
Let me say this about Parma, because now they're in between B and A.
Oh,
and
cool.
Back when he first went, they were a bottom level C team, and this is what I think his best, I guess, coaching attribute is it does really well with a youth team, and that's what a Serie C team would be. They were just a bunch of kids, and he ends up getting second with them and promoting them to Serie B, it really is one of these things where that club will always be thankful for that, because in the time that they did it, it kind of started to establish them because like I was saying, like these clubs were really breaking off and like being like, oh, we are a bottom level team or we're a mid-level team. So
this guy reminds me of Buck Showalter as a manager when it comes to like just developing youth and making them really good, and then for whatever reason moving on somewhere else. During this time from 80 to 86, he was actually an assistant on the Italian national team, and in one of these seasons in 82, they win the World Cup in Spain.
Yeah, when they went to Spain, he was the assistant manager for the Italian team. Again, just doing what he did kind of with Milan, where you see him just kind of being like the hands-on, backroom guy.
The developer, basically.
Because people know him as a player. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So there's almost like a player coach, not that he's playing out on the field, but that they can relate to him as a player, not just a coach.
Has that cachet almost like a Dan Gable, where it's like, all right, I better not screw up, or like if this guy tells me something, especially if I'm a defender, I should probably listen to him.
Yes, there's no second guessing it being like, you didn't play. Like literally it's like, oh yeah, Maldini's telling me to do this, I'm going to do it.
You're a hockey player, Happy? What team do you play for? So he does so well as the assistant manager that he's actually promoted to be the head coach of Italy's national under-21 team in 1986. And my God, they do some special stuff.
And like I was saying, his work with youth, because I feel like there's two types of coaches, which is a senior regular coach, and then there's a youth coach, and those don't get praised enough in the development of skills. And people were saying that from 86 to 96, he did it for a decade.
Yeah.
He might have been the best in the world because he developed an Italian team that went on to win championships, World Cup championships.
Yeah, World Cup championships.
So I just want to say he ends up winning the Euro Youth 21 3 consecutive times, 92, 94, and 96.
That's amazing.
And the players that he developed go on to win the 2006 World Cup.
Yeah, that roster is stacked with them.
We have
Fabio Cannavaro,
who ends up beating his son's record for appearances in Italy, which I'm just saying it all ties together. Francisco Totti, who was like the best number 10 that they had in that time. Buffon, who's like the best goalkeeper.
Gianluigi. I love that name.
And his son. That was
his son too.
The other thing that and he put this core together of players that are recognized as the Italian squad, and that's what they were saying was just like the thing that nations need more than like a better head coach would be like better youth development.
The better youth coach, because the head coach of the adult team or the senior team, who are the players that he's getting?
Yep.
Are they any good? Do they know how to play together? Do they know soccer? So he coaches the youth team for a decade, and then he's placed in charge of the senior side.
Well,
in
they
1998.
thought, and that's the thing. There was discrepancy here, where some people thought he should have stayed, and they were like, "Well, he's doing so well. A lot of these players are being promoted to this next level.
Yeah.
Let's let him coach it." And he does good. This is the thing.
They do okay. I mean, they do well, all things considered. Just, they don't finish the job.
Well, they get through the group stage.
Mm-hmm.
They end up playing France and tying them 0-0 and losing in penalties. I think they were the first team to get eliminated from a World Cup without ever losing.
Yeah, they never lost a game.
And the criticism after it was that he was too defensive.
Conservative. What do you freaking... That's when I read it. I was like, what do you expect? What do you expect from this guy and the style of Italy's national team to begin with?
Yes. It's crazy to think that Italians were telling him he's too defensive. That's when you think, well, maybe he was being a little too defensive.
Fast kicking, low scoring, and ties.
And they were really referencing the France game where they thought they should have opened him up more, blah, 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 blah. But he ends up not ever coaching for Italy again. Because
he resigned like immediately after this criticism started coming.
But he felt like it was unjust criticism, and a lot of people kind of were with him on that, but it's hard to say.
It's kind of unfair, though, because it's like, isn't this what you brought me in to do?
Yes. I'm a defender who became a coach. What do you think I'm going to do? Attack? Like, come on.
If you had told me, if you take this job, you have to open it up more, fine.
Yeah.
But I'm playing it exactly the way you want me to play it. Or I assumed you wanted me to play it.
And they were just unlucky with that one. Like, if they had gone through and beat France, I bet he would have been praised for his defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what sucks is like...
Because France wins the whole shebang-a-bang that year.
And the penalties you can just never...
predict almost.
Yeah.
So after that, he's a scout in 1999 with Milan. Interim manager, actually.
So they had this was like their big down year. They end up firing their coach. They finish 6th, and they bring him in just to do I think they bring him in for 8 games at the end, where they're like, look, you're not going to be our manager going forward, but we need somebody to right this ship.
We need just some stability.
His son was actually
the captain.
I thought that was really cool. I like that a lot. And then he went from that to become another World Cup coach.
Yeah, that's right.
In a bit of controversy.
Yeah. So in January 2002, a number of Paraguayan nationals were passed over, and he is selected to coach Paraguay and their national team in the upcoming World Cup. They mentioned he speaks little Spanish, and all I could think of was that Simpsons episode with Mr. X where he's putting out fake news, and Dr. Hibbert's like, Spanish and Italian are the same language.
But he gets
it
a
is
lot
controversial, though, yeah.
It's controversial, but I feel like it's something that these smaller kind of countries have to deal with, where they're like, this guy's coached on the international stage. He has the experience we're looking for. Paraguay actually already qualified and then fired their coach, and we're looking for a new coach.
Oh, did they really? No way.
So he didn't qualify for them. He went into an already established qualified team and was like, I'll get the best out of these players.
He got results.
And he did. That was what people were saying, was like there was controversy before, but Paraguay isn't a great team. They made it through the group stage.
Yeah.
They have a great showing against who they end up losing.
They end up losing in the round of 16 to the Germans.
To the Germans, who end up going to the finals and losing. And that was the thing that people were saying, was like, the other coaches probably couldn't have done this, because he really put in a defensive core that helped them establish themselves as a team.
The Catenaccio style, the doorbolt style, just lock it down.
Well, and that's what, for people that were like, no, we need this guy. That's what he kind of repaid them, because they weren't expected to win a game, let alone go out of the group stage.
Yeah, exactly. They end up making it out. And then as far as towards that was basically it for him, for his coaching.
They said that I saw this interview with talking about him, where he was just kind of like, I don't think I can put another full effort in. And that's why I think he took the Paraguay job, because it wasn't qualifying. It was just that tourney. And he was just like, this is going to be my last gasp kind of thing.
Yeah. After the World Cup, he was AC Milan scout and then later a sports analyst, just kind of staying around the game because, that's what you do as a former athlete, it seems.
Yeah, on various Italian sports, he would come on and be like, no, they're not playing defense.
They're not playing enough defense.
Shit.
Ends up had 6 kids, though. 6 total kids, one of whom we've talked about.
3 boys, 3 girls.
Yeah, like any good Catholic would. Yeah. But on April 3rd, 2016, he lived to 84, ends up dying. The Serie A teams, like, everybody was just, like, devastated by it. Even one of his grandsons, I think, wore an armband during one of his games, too, I had read. So
yeah, Daniel, I think. I'll say this, if his son didn't come along, people would be talking about him being like the man from Milan, but then his son dwarfs him so much as to how many games he's played,
as a player,
how many championships, and then, you know what? Tune right in, because we're going to come back with his son.
All right.